beer is meant to be drank about 48, 50 degrees. Most beers. Obviously, it's better. It depends on the beer and depends on the, how hot you are.
Like in like a sex appeal sort of way, or like temperature wise?
Mostly, well, both.
Both feel relevant to the
Yeah.
subject matter.
But the other day I was reading some scientific theories, and most people are aware of the theory of evolution and, the idea that we are the descendants of chimps or apes. But a lot of people wonder how we got there. And have you guys ever heard of the chimp pig hypothesis?
Is this like a missing link thing?
The chimp pig?
The chimp pig.
Oh, yes, my favorite.
Is this
The
like
chimp pig.
man bear pig?
It's close to man bear pig, but it is a real theory.
Okay,
it is
go
a real
on.
theory, and it's partially a theory about challenging your assumptions and your worldview. But basically, the theory is that at some point, a chimp had sex with a pig, and
Go on.
and
Offspring.
this happened enough times to where the pig or the chimp, for that matter, I guess it could go, but I'm assuming a male chimp for the most part had babies that were fertile, which can happen because they talk about with mules, where donkeys and horses, they're sterile.
Yeah,
they're sterile.
Sure, and not
Well,
they're
no, we know.
slightly closer related.
But it is possible actually to have fertile mules. It's just rare.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
So similarly, it actually is possible on a long enough time horizon to have that with chimps and pigs. But the idea being that humans are actually
Pigs.
we're very similar to chimps,
But we taste like pigs.
but we taste like pigs, and we have knees. We don't have monkey knees. We have pig knees. We have pig. Whatever the type of knees we have are the same type of knees that pigs have, and we have pink.
Oh my God. It all fits.
We have pink skin.
We have pink skin, and people of other races also have darker skin, but there are pigs of darker skin. Our skin is much more like pig skin,
Sure.
which is only
Yep.
partially hairy or hair on top of. And monkeys actually have a layer of muscle, or chimps at least have a layer of muscle under their entire body,
Right.
under their skin, where
they're jacked.
they're jacked, but they can like
By
wiggle
design.
they can wiggle. Well, and we have muscle under here, but like over their entire body, there is a layer of muscle that allows them to like move things. Where we have a layer of fat, which again is like pigs.
Like pigs, yeah.
So there are real people out there. There are dozens of us that have.
So you're
Well,
part.
I'm pig chip curious is the way I'd say it.
I guess this is a good time to tell you guys about my new faith in the flying spaghetti monster. Church.
Oh.
Yeah. Have you heard of that one?
I have heard of
I've
that.
heard of that
Yeah.
one.
I mean, that was inspired for tax reasons, but I think, elevated itself to something divine, which most pursuits that start in taxes don't end that way. But this one
Yours went
did.
in the reverse of most.
did.
I like that. Hello, Micah Vannon. Welcome to the Under Towers podcast. Speak, friend, and enter. My name is Steven.
My name is Daniel.
Sam.
And we got a great episode for you tonight. Thank you, gentlemen. That was a phenomenal opener. But first, as always, some news.
Indeed.
Hooray.
This has just become the animation show news. Because the first piece of news for you tonight is the first trailer for Batman Caped Crusader dropped. Looks sick. Cool. It's very noir, very kind of that old school dark detective Batman is what it looks like, which is terribly exciting. And we were lamenting a couple episodes ago the lack of kind of serious adult, as in grown-up cartoons in the Western side as opposed to anime. Well, this looks like that's going to scratch that itch. And what got me, I was already excited just watching the trailer, but then they brought up Bruce Timm's name, who created Batman the Animated Series.
Right.
Which obviously we all grew up watching. Every millennial should be terribly excited. And Matt Reeves, who directed the latest Batman movie, the R. Pat's Batman,
which was really good.
Yeah, he's one of the producers as well.
And then the unfortunate producer.
Well, we don't have to. We can leave his name off.
He speaks for
I
himself.
believe that bittersweet kind of thing. I believe that this is the first animated movie or show. This is a show, but I believe this is the first animated Batman without Kevin Conroy. Rest in peace. But Hamish Linklater is taking over, and he sounds awesome.
I wonder if they can get Mark Hamill to do it.
He's already said that he's already said he's done. He won't
be the Joker.
Now that he will only be the Joker for Kevin Conroy's Batman. They go together, and he
sense.
said he won't. He is officially retired from Joker.
That feels pretty honorable.
It does. I get it. They worked for so long together on that, and it was a real dynamic duo.
And voice work's relatively easy, but he's old too.
I mean, he could. But again, I think that he would have kept going forever if Kevin.
I think
Conroy
that.
was
I think
attached,
that. I think
was
that makes
kind
sense.
of my
too.
understanding. So every episode, as far as I know, every episode is dropping on August 1st on Amazon.
Oh, so soon.
The whole show available at once. Next piece of news that has the three of us just over the moon excited. Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake has a release date, and it releases everywhere on all consoles November 14th.
On all consoles.
All consoles.
So
I'm so pumped.
Technically, PlayStation Network has it listed as dropping at 11 p.m. on the 13th. Being in our mid-30s, I will not be playing it until the 14th. But back in the day, that would have been terribly exciting, a midnight drop. So for anybody that's unfamiliar, I think we've talked about Dragon Quest III. That was a game that was very important to all of us
on our list
as
somewhere.
kids playing Game Boys in the halls of the church. Dragon Quest III was the first RPG I ever played, I think. And it just looks absolutely gorgeous. This HD 2D thing that they have developed looks
phenomenal.
Stunning.
Hope it's a thing,
It's
right?
the-
For
it's
these old games.
Yeah, for
It's
real.
the Octopath Traveler design.
Yes.
Which is some of the most fun I've had playing a game in recent years. It scratched that JRPG old school itch while having the updated and modern, feel and look. Octopath Traveler, I can't speak highly enough about it, but the story is interesting but lacking, which I'm really excited to have Dragon Quest games in this style because that's one of the things Dragon Quest does great.
Yeah.
Is a really compelling and interesting story.
Yeah, and having the really gorgeous backgrounds with the cleaned up kind of modernized pixelated characters is just I am so excited. I've not been this excited for a new game in a long time, and I know I said last week don't pre-order video games. I'm going to be pre-ordering this video game. Again, release date everywhere is November 14th, and then the fun thing that they revealed at the end of their trailer that they dropped is they confirmed the rumors that they've secretly been doing the exact same HD 2D process with both Dragon Quest 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah.
And those
nice.
release as one game
Next year.
I think early 2025.
Yeah, it's
and
great.
they're releasing it in that order because I wasn't aware of this because I didn't play the first and second game. But the Erdrick saga,
Oh, they go
the
in that order.
timeline is
Yes.
actually 3, 1, 2.
Oh, I
Yes.
see.
So
Yes.
So 3 was like a prequel then.
yeah, so
Yes.
they're the whole Erdrick saga will be available on all consoles in this HD 2D format as of the beginning of next
I
year.
want them to do it to Pokemon so bad.
That would be sick.
The old
We
ones.
do.
Who knows?
We need Pokemon in that style. Also, similarly, real quick, they just announced the first, actually the first, but a major release of Zelda where you actually play as Zelda.
Oh.
That's going to be coming out later this year.
I
in
wasn't
the-
as huge of a fan of the look of that one. I kind of
Yeah.
wish that they had done the
I
Breath
just
of the
don't want
Wild
to play
that
Zelda.
new thing.
Like,
It actually looks quite cool because you like.
she's
you-
always
you-
like in distress, you know?
No, but the.
What if you just played her in distress? Like, oh, I'm captured. And then you just wait
No, but
around for
what's-
like
A survival horror
60
version.
hours until Link comes to save you.
What's neat is you gain abilities to like create tables or to create like monsters, and then you like put those monsters in things into the world, and then use them to solve puzzles or attack things. It's actually
That's
it
fun.
looks quite neat.
Nice.
The art is the art from
That-
the
that
Link's
was kinda the
Awakening
thing that-
remake.
yeah.
And I'm mixed on it. I'm okay with it.
We'll see. We'll see more. It was just a teaser trailer, if I remember correctly. And then the last thing I've got for you guys is a piece of metal news, but it's also important to our show here because Tim Rowland, Hole Dweller, whose music opens and ends our episodes, has just released his first album for his new solo project, Silent Vigil. The album is called Hope and Despair, and Silent Vigil is a melodic death doom project.
Nice.
It's sick. I listened to it. You guys probably would not be super into it because it's got a lot of the harsh death vocals in it. But there are a couple songs in there that
I like the melodic bit.
Yeah, and it is very melodic. The first song, at least, is an instrumental.
Okay.
And it's phenomenal.
I'll definitely have to at least click through it.
This is one of my favorite parts about indie underground metal music is how many bands is just one dude.
Yeah.
Creating this amazing art, and that's Tim Rowland. I came to him through Hole Dweller, and he's my favorite dungeon synth artist. But this is phenomenal. It reminded me a lot of Fires in the Distance, which was one of my top albums. Their album Air Not Meant for Us was one of my top albums from last year, and
amazing.
So available on Bandcamp and streaming services everywhere. Silent Vigil, Tim Rowland's new melodic death doom project.
Dope.
So that's the news. And now before we get going on our main topic for the evening, a word from our sponsors.
Yes. Big thank you again to Black Coast Shapewear for sponsoring the last episode. Unfortunately, you guys didn't buy enough and they didn't want to do it again.
Yep.
So
thanks,
we have
guys.
a new
Thank you.
But we do have a new sponsor.
That was super unlive of you, by the way.
Yeah. Please be more supple
And live.
and support them, and maybe they'll come back to us.
And cat-like.
But that being said, we have a new sponsor for tonight. So please, this episode is brought to you by Damsel Distressing. Are your fits looking too clean? Are you in need of a change? An update to something more real? Are you trying to go from Prince Alarming to Prince Charming? Well, Damsel Distressing is here to be your knight in off-white armor. They will come to your rescue to tear up and wear out. They will come to your rescue to tear up and wear out any and all clothing that looks too shiny and new, adding tears to jeans, stains to pants, gunk on shorts, coffee stains, burrow holes, rips, skids, burn marks, sledge, oil spills, potion concoctions, vomit poop, snail trails, stink bombs, tea stains, mothman bites, goblin snarks, dragon flame, wizard jarbs, and anything else you can think of. Damsel Distressing will take all your brand new, tidy, and boring looks and update them for these damaged and worn out times. Clean looks are out, rough looks are in. Damsel Distressing will wear out your underworn fits. Damsel Distressing to the rescue.
Thank you, Damsel Distressing.
I really want to know
for
how to
sponsoring
get
tonight's podcast.
the goblin narcs out. Was that one?
Well, it's not about getting them out. It's about getting them in.
It's actually about getting them in.
Yeah,
but
nobody wants the perfect shiny clothes. It's all about the wear and tear.
It's about the wear and tear.
Like you've been out and
you want to look like you've been adventuring
without having to do the adventure.
If you're, and this is not the ad read. This
is
is just coming from my heart. If you're trying to woo a young lady, you don't want to look like you just bought your clothes. You want to look like you've just been questing.
Right.
So this is where they come in. They've.
That's a lot of work to go questing.
It is a lot of work to go questing, and you should be out making money. So like you make money, they make it look like you've been questing. You look appealing to those you might want to appeal to. So I think it's a win-win.
You can make money questing.
All right. So now it's on you, gentle listener. Help us keep a sponsor this week. Let's see what you guys can do. All right. So now for our topic tonight. We're talking tropes.
Tropes.
Fantasy tropes.
Nice.
Let's turn to the dictionary real quick.
What is a trope, Steve?
What is a trope?
Thank you. Let's turn to the dictionary. If it will load up for me here.
Trope. I just think tripe, which is like kind of going back to the pig thing.
I like it. Yes, a little different.
Did we plan this?
So according to Merriam-Webster,
she knows.
A trope is a word or expression used in a figurative sense, a common or overused theme or device. Now, that's definitely the one that we're going to be talking about. That's I think more how it's used in this
Yeah.
context.
Smartphone.
A cliche,
So
though,
again,
too.
a common or
cliche.
overused theme or device. In the literary sense, that's what a trope is. So we're going to be talking about some common tropes in fantasy literature.
Kind of sci-fi too.
Yeah, for sure.
almost.
There's a lot of, I mean, like we've discussed, the line between science fiction and fantasy is very blurred. And this is one of those times where the line gets very blurred. And it definitely doesn't just apply to literature. You could find a lot of these in movies, video games, etc.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about some that we like and some that we don't like. I would like to kind of point out, I think in a lot of these discussions, it's very vitriolic as far as like, I hate these or I really love these. And my kind of opinion on tropes in general is I don't really think that there's such thing as a good and a bad trope. I just think that there are some tropes that require a defter hand to write well.
Yes.
Whether because they're just more complicated to not be cheesy or cringe, or because they're way overused, or because they maybe don't fit in with the culture anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's like totally like just a baseline foundational truth.
Yeah.
And then the bad stuff is more like they've done a lot of these bad.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, any that I had on my list that I dislike, they either don't resonate with me kind of inherently, or they're very easy to mess up. I don't actually think that they're inherently bad for the most part. I've got one that I think is kind of inherently bad.
Yeah, no, I'm in that same boat.
But
These are just
for the
ones
most part.
Yeah, these are ones for me, really the very visceral reaction for most of mine are like if a story starts to go there, or if I start to feel like a story's going there, I'll just go ugh and just roll my eyes.
Sure.
It's just that feeling of like,
Here we
really?
go.
And then
Yeah.
occasionally, even when I do that, they'll pull it off, and I'll be like, okay, this was still interesting.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of times it's like, oh, and then it is this thing, and okay, here we go.
But
Well, and what's fun too is sometimes like, and we'll, if we find any that we think of as we're going along with this, especially in the dislike category, sometimes it's fun to read when you have that moment of, oh, here we go, I know exactly where this is going, and an author can then kind of turn the trope on its head too, like not just deliver on the trope itself, but find a way to subvert that trope in an interesting way that gives you a different look at that same idea.
Yeah. Well, and that's also in the negative for tropes I enjoy. Whenever I think one I like is coming, I just get all, oh boy,
excited.
Sure.
Here we go.
oh boy,
Sure,
Here
and
we
then
go.
we're about to do the thing.
Well, and
I love
sometimes
the thing.
if that gets subverted, then sometimes that can
Sometimes
be
that's
wildly
actually annoying.
too.
Sometimes that's annoying, and sometimes they set you up and then they let you down, or they set you up and then it's just kind of like, you just kind of that didn't deliver.
When it's
the
too
way.
on the nose, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. But before we get going, I think to help more of our definition of tropes, Daniel does a thing for all of our book club hangs where he brings drinks or something that complements sort of the story we're talking about. And tonight we're talking about tropes, and Daniel brought some beers. This one.
Yeah, so we've got Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale. No shade on Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale, but
What
it is
kind
a
of shade,
big beer. And for what it is, there are better versions, in my opinion, of that style of beer.
So
Steven
delicious.
very
I
specifically
disagree, but that's all right.
enjoys it.
I do as well. Cheers.
Again, no
to
shade.
you.
That's
And,
why they're drinking it and I'm not. And then for me, though, I love Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's an old family-owned brewery. I love it. It's great.
Sam's just now connecting that Daniel brought pale ales for Stephen to drink.
I also had them, so it kind of, but it also just
Steven
sort of
doesn't
fit,
like the
so,
pale ale,
yeah.
but he likes the bourbon barrel. Anyway, so that's a trope, right?
the
That's a
metaphor.
trope.
It's a trope.
Pale ale.
That's
It's a classic. It's a boring beer, but hey, when it's done right,
classic
it's
white
done right.
dude trope.
Hey!
It's the Star Wars of beers.
All right, so I'll start us off here with let's do some likes first,
likes,
gentlemen.
like.
We'll each do a like, and then we'll start doing some dislikes. So one of my favorites, I'm going to kind of lump two together here because they kind of fit into the same niche here. But one of my absolute favorite tropes, and one that is all throughout. We're reading right now. We're reading John Gwynn's The Faithful and the Fallen, and this is one of my favorite things about this series of books is the fellowship / found family trope. The fellowship, you could think of Lord of the Rings as the perfect example. A group of people, disparate group of people coming together for a greater cause. And then the found family aspect, kind of taking that fellowship angle one step further to where you're not just trusting these people and working with them towards a greater goal, but actually literally kind of forming a family with these people that maybe they were friends to start with. Maybe you didn't know who they were at all, or maybe, you didn't trust them to begin with, but adversity and the situation and the struggle puts these people together and forges a family out of them. I love that. And then the little addendum that I wanted to add to that, because it kind of fits into that sphere, is the lone wolf and cub trope. Maybe there's a different way of calling it. That's what I've always thought of it as, because of the old, I think it was a comic book and movie and book, but that old, the samurai and the little kid. But the crusty old guy and the little kid.
Too bad we can't use Leon the Professional anymore for that.
Yeah, can't use Leon. Jesus Christ.
That is the trope, though.
Last
of Us.
Yeah, Last of Us.
Last of Us is
the
that.
Hound and Arya's
Hound and Arya.
Yep.
God of War. Even though the new God of War's like Atreus is his son.
Qui-Gon and
it's still the
Anakin.
same thing.
Still kind of
right?
Qui-Gon and Anakin for sure.
Sure.
There's
lots of examples. Of that.
I love that trope,
Those are the only
and
ones.
it is the same. It fits in with me for me with the found family thing, because it's frequently the old guy doesn't want to be a dad.
Yeah.
And is most of the time kind of a bad person.
Yeah, very frequently, and it gives him a chance to redeem himself and fill that father figure role. And we're all dads. That touches me deeply when that happens. Mandalorian obviously is another.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect example.
And that's a great example. You've listed a lot of ones where it's really great. The crusty exterior character, hard worn character with the reluctant heart of gold. That one is actually one. It's not on my hate list, but it's one that when it's not done well really bums me out. Only because it slows down the story so much when you're like, this guy who is going to end up doing the thing won't do. He's like, we're going to have 4 chapters where he won't do the thing before he does it. But when it's done right, like in Mandalorian, where like he takes on the baby and like, he doesn't want to take the baby, but he's got the baby with him. There's no moment where we're like, he's reluctant. Yes, he's crusty or curmudgeon-y, but he does the thing. That's
Last of Us is the
same way. He's got the girl and he's got and they're going, and yes, he doesn't want to do it, but he's still doing it. That's the biggest problem, and this will actually tie into some of the ones I don't like, is I don't like tropes when they slow down the story.
Sure.
Tropes should speed your story up. If you're gonna make me wait while you guys like hemming and hawing, I'm not gonna do. It's like if I know from the moment something starts that the guy's gonna do the thing, please do not make me wait more than like 2 pages, because that's frustrating. But when the trope's done right, maybe longer than 2 pages.
You're sorry, you're being hyperbolic.
I
It's
know,
okay.
But my point is, if I know where we're going, let's just go. Let's just do it and have that frustration and conflict in the character's heart. Have it happen while they're doing it. Don't have them run away, unless you're going to actually have the crusty guy run away and not do the thing. Because then you're like, oh wow, he's actually not going to do the.
Then
good
it's
thing.
like a broken trope.
And it exists exactly. Then you're subverting that trope a little bit. But yeah, that's just those are my 1-2 cents.
Read that would be if it was just a bunch of broken tropes. Like
that would be. I
mean,
that
Game
would
of
be
Thrones
very
kind of
hard
did
to.
that with like.
Game of Thrones does.
Or Grimdark in general.
Yeah, it's kind of based in some ways around subverting tropes for sure. But then it still is fantasy, so it still ends up adhering to certain ones in it, and it depends on which one you're doing. But there's another example of the lone wolf and cub is Raven and Darling in the Black Company.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there's another, the grandfather of Grimdark series has one of those kind of classic family tropes, and you could also argue found families in there too, because that's kind of the whole thing of the Black Company is.
Yeah.
The whole thing is like a family unit.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
So
we're still on.
I love those 2 tropes. Family is everything to me, so I love seeing that in stories, and I'm only 2 steps away from the crotchety old man myself. So
yeah, honestly, day by day, I'm like,
that.
they make more sense. Becoming one.
Yeah, Well, look at this.
Seems
Look at this, dude.
appealing. The little
Filling
pepper,
in, filling
little
grays
salt,
here.
Salt and pepper.
Yeah, dude. So that's my first trope. I would say I love that one. Now that's one of those that if, like you said, that's one of those where if I see that this is coming in a story, I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah,
I get pretty excited about those tropes. So Daniel, how about a like from you?
So I'll kind of tie my first two that I wrote down together because they kind of go together,
Sure.
I think, too. But I just love a wizard. I love a lore master. I love and I wrote mentor as well. I love a mentor. Mentor is a little more broad, and I think I probably wrote mentor to kind of include sci-fi because you'll sometimes get you'll get a mentor of some kind, someone who's been in the field, kind of taking someone under their wing.
Well, you talk about tropes like that mentor character.
Yes.
I mean, that's that's one of Joseph Campbell's things. That's one of his the call to adventure.
Yes.
Typically comes from that old mentor
figure. And I love it. I get so excited when Gandalf shows up and he's wanting to take you on an adventure, and it definitely goes back. A lot of these go back to reading Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit as a 8, 9, 10-year-old, and just that there's something mythic and wonderful and rich about that mysterious. The wizard or lore master is great too because Elrond's one of those two. He's the lore master who reveals, which kind of ties into my second, which I love lore dumps. Just dump lore on me. Waterfall lore on me. I want exposition for days. Just I don't, and we've actually talked a bit about this. Show don't tell. You know what? Just tell me. I'm just just tell. Show me later that it was real or whatever. That's fine. But let's just tell. Just tell and just exposit. I love that. Again, this goes back to Lord of the Rings. Chapter 2 of Lord of the Rings, A Shadow of the Past, Gandalf just talking exposition for 12 pages.
Yeah.
And you know what?
It's great.
More books need to do this. Yeah. We need to not do less of this.
How about the whole prologue to the Fellowship of the Ring?
Yes.
That's just if
dumping
on the
info
audio
on you.
book is 30 minutes to an hour of just Hobbit lore.
Info. Let's go. Let's do more of this. This is also a big part of Book of the New Sun, where we just get little asides. And Severian is just telling you the history of random rules and expositions. Again, it's not going to work that way in every book, but I want some grizzled old man telling some younger person just lots of stuff.
Well, I think this is a perfect example of something that requires a deft hand.
Yes, it can be done
because
poorly.
We've referenced Tolkien and
Gene Wolfe.
and Gene Wolfe. So, but it takes a deft hand before it. There's the brilliant moment in the Great Muppet Caper when I'm stupidly forgetting the character's name, but the woman that is the designer and she's hiring Miss Piggy and she just dumps all this lore on Miss Piggy about her relationship with her brother and his inability to hold on to money and keep jobs and blah 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 blah. And Miss Piggy is just why are you telling me this? And she has the brilliant line of, "It's exposition, darling. It has to go somewhere."
I mean, honestly, that's like a real world trope for me. Like Old Man Dollar, the redneck I grew up next to, he would dump lots of lore on me. I would not want it. He'd be like, "Son, if your goats come in my yard again, I'm gonna shoot them with my shotgun." And he would say that, and that's lore. I mean, he had a whole story about my billy goat going in his yard.
I love it.
So grizzled old man all the time.
Grizzled old man.
Dude, that's what you want.
Just anytime though in a story when I'm the old guy's about to tell me a bunch of stuff. I'm just I get I'll start getting so viscerally excited, and then they give it to me, and usually I just hook me, inject it into my veins. I'm ready. So revealed secrets, mysteries of the universe, deep lore, all that stuff. Let's go. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. They get you the lore. I'll still get excited, and then you're like, that's kind of lame. But
lame.
Most of the time. Even in Elric, which is a series we read and had had an up and down relationship with lots of great stuff. But some of the best parts of that were when we the weird lore, weird he didn't lore dump a ton, but like
he did a lot of like communist manifesto dump.
And some of that stuff was awful. But
some of it was cool though.
Some of it was cool,
was
but
very
like
cool.
again, that was some of the coolest stuff when it was like, oh wow, this is the way the world works, and there's like law and chaos, and they're fighting, and interesting. It's like honestly, I probably could have used more of that from some of his stuff. I
Yeah,
definitely
it
could use
does-
more grizzled old characters in his stories.
It
Not
does
enough
just
grizzled
wake you
old
up
characters.
though when you start going down that lore train when like all of a sudden
so
it's
hyped.
like, oh, and then the god of this world, you're like, what world?
Wait,
what? Huh?
Huh?
More? Yeah, I feel that.
I love
I
it.
feel that.
That's awesome. Sam, how about a like from you?
Well, I was thinking that I want to talk about how I love amnesia in a story.
Interesting.
That feels like a thing where, like, I mean, it's like a born identity thing or, memento. But yeah, a character just dropped into a story and they're like, I'm here and I have these abilities, but I don't know why I have them. And kind of just discovering that along the way.
Interesting.
It hasn't really happened in many of the stories we've read so far.
There's one we need to read.
Conan has a couple that are like that.
With amnesia?
Where he gets places and he's like, how did I get here kind of thing.
Yeah,
It was
no,
more like he
there's
was
some-
knocked out and figures it out later.
Yeah.
But I just love that sentiment of being dropped in a situation and then finding yourself oddly.
Yeah,
able
like not
to-
necessarily literal amnesia, but the
trope
the
of being like,
complete
it's
unknown.
dark, I figure it out. How
Yeah.
did I get here? I'm out of it.
That's how
Because of
the
my
Chronicles
ability.
of Amber starts.
At least you
with
remember
amnesia.
it that
No,
way.
I've not read it yet, but I just know that about the story. It starts with one of the princes it's called Nine Princes and Amber is the first book, and it starts with amnesia. So his lost memory is also your lost memory of the world, and he's a established character, but you're learning the world as he relearns it. So
Well, I mean, another thing is in Berserk, there's that too.
Yes.
Sure.
That whole
Yep.
thing.
with and
And it's more like about how, so a trope in Berserk, and I don't want to get too spoily on it, but like with Casca, reading it the whole time, you're like, I know she's going to get it back. I know she's going to get it back one day. And just like that kind of thing in any story where you're like, there's a guy that lost his something.
Yeah.
But you know that they're going to get it back somehow through some crazy trial or something. I love that idea that like this is like a hidden power the whole time and it's going to get back somehow. They've lost it. We got to figure it out.
I will say Casca's amnesia is a great example of a really good use of it when it's especially not at the beginning of the story.
Right.
Because the amnesia thing often actually annoys me when it's the main character and it's in the middle of the story when you've like done a bunch of stuff
You
and
meet
then he
them in
forgets everything.
amnesia?
Yeah, when you start with amnesia, that's fine because we're learning the world together.
Okay.
But when the main character, it's like he forgets everything, and it's like again, it's another one. It slows the story
Waste time.
down, and
Yeah,
we're like,
waste time. Yeah.
oh, we're like bogged down, and now he's got to relearn everything. And how long is this going to take? I feel like we get that way more in TV than we do in books, to be honest.
Well,
where someone
more
forgets
episodes.
everything,
Yeah, I feel
and it's
a
like, oh,
super soap opera kind
yes,
of
they
trope.
forget everything. But
I like when it pushes the story along in a way that they could not have
Yes.
done that unless they didn't remember things.
Well,
Yes.
something that we for sure will be reading in the near future, Gene Wolfe's Latro books.
that is excellent use of amnesia.
It has the very kind of memento
Yes.
style of amnesia. Memento is a great example also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I dig that. I also like the expansion of that, the not literal amnesia, but your character who is maybe highly capable. I think I know the Conan story you're talking about. I can't remember what it's called, but when he's dropped
like
in
it's
that like
there.
pitch black dungeon and
Yeah, he doesn't know he doesn't know what's going on.
so I do also like that where you take like a super capable character and then drop them in a position where they have no knowledge or memory of anything that's happening and have to figure it out as if they were suffering from something like amnesia.
Or
That's
Tarzan.
a cool way of
It's
looking
in
at it, too.
Tarzan where he's dropped in that cave and he like talks monkey language to the tribal people.
Sure.
I love it when he
That is
talks
there.
monkey language.
That's what I mean. Oh,
But I
give
see
me
where you're
Tarzan.
going.
Give me Tarzan and monkey language.
I see where you're
More
going.
of that and amnesia.
I see where you're going. I like it. These are good. And one thing I like is this is a pretty. I watch a lot of BookTube videos, and there's a lot of discussions about tropes, and I can pretty confidently say, outside of maybe the found family thing, that's probably discussed. I don't think that what we've talked about here is at least in the way that we're talking about. I've not heard being
Unless you're
discussed very
having
often. So
amnesia right
that's
now.
cool, and I could be. Boy, this week I could be. All right, let's talk some dislikes.
Nice.
So I'm gonna go ahead and get this one out of the way because This is one.
Can I pick one for you later, Steven? Because I really like one of your dislikes.
Yes, absolutely.
Later,
Yep.
not now.
Next round of
Okay.
of dislikes you
Unless
can
you
pick,
do it
unless
now,
I just do
but
it
we'll
now.
s- yeah, we'll
Actually,
see.
we could do that for all of. We could do a round where we all pick one that
I
would
like that.
make the other talk.
Daniel,
one.
you're
sorry.
tro-
We're
your trope
interrupting.
is slowing
We're
us
interrupting.
down.
I'm sorry.
Daniel's doing an interrupting trope right now, and it's slowing the story down.
Okay, so here's my first dislike, and this is the one that I kind of referenced earlier. That this is the only one that I think is just straight up bad.
Okay.
Like there are ways that you can
Whoa,
do
going back
this
on what
thing.
You said.
Well, I prefaced it. I prefaced it at the beginning that I said that there was one dislike that I truly actually disliked.
So this is actually just bad.
So this is what's known as fridging. Are you guys familiar with fridging?
I didn't. I
Fridging-
thought edging.
Yes, I am.
And then I was like, that's
So-
not it.
Fridging is when the author just kills the typically woman love
Yeah.
interest, and that can be a legitimate story beat, legitimate part of the story. But the fridging part is where they kill the woman love interest just to push the main character forward. Like there's literally no other reason to do it. You could have made this happen in any other way, but we just went ahead and killed the lady. And the term fridging comes, I believe, from a Green Lantern comic book where I think it was what's his name, Kyle, not Hal Jordan, one of the other '90s. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. But anyways, Green Lantern comes home and his girlfriend's killed and stuffed in a refrigerator.
Gotcha.
And it
like
served
a fridge. She was fridging.
it served no purpose in the story, like except it was just to like get him moving on towards whatever the next thing is.
Yeah.
So something that could have easily been accomplished without killing his girlfriend.
Right.
So again, like
Sometimes you need to kill the lady. You know?
Braveheart, like
Right.
there's it can be something that happens, and it can be something that really truly does push a character into something, but.
Yeah.
When it's just like and then we killed the girlfriend and stuffed her in a fridge. Oh, look, wasn't that horrible? And now on to the next issue and blah, 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 blah. And it's just...
Well, and usually they don't even... Because obviously having your character reckon with loss is... And because loss is a part of real life.
Yes.
That's a very important thing. And Braveheart's a great example. That is where that loss informs a lot of what he ends up doing.
I feel like it enables him too, because otherwise he would like want to stay home, take care of his
he was.
family.
Yeah,
So
he
that's where it's a
wasn't
great
going.
example.
He wasn't going to rebel at all.
Yeah, but
No.
now that she's gone and it's them that did it, it's like
But
that's the motivating.
But you're
factor.
absolutely right. There are a lot of versions of that trope where the death is unnecessary, often like strangely grotesque or weird.
Yeah,
and then it's also
gratuitous and unearned.
and a character.
We talk about things being unearned.
Yeah, and also a character that's introduced just to die. You can often feel it, where they're not real, or they write them like overly rosy.
Here's
Yeah.
here's a perfect example that frankly ruined a show for me.
Yeah.
And I don't give a shit if you think this is a spoiler. I'm sorry, not sorry.
Shame on you.
Shame on you. But my favorite character in the Wheel of Time, bar none, is Perrin, the blacksmith.
Yeah.
I identified with him very strongly as a young man. He was, he's a bigger dude, and he's very anti-violent. He's a non-violent person in the books. I'm talking the books right now. We're going to get to the show in a second. And he really has to be pushed to be violent because he's grown up knowing his capacity to hurt people and not wanting to do that. And that was something I resonated with as a kid. It's something that drew me to that character, and I think an interesting character choice for kind of the big burly member of the party. That's
Guy
kind
who's
of
like obviously going to be a barbarian.
It's a you could argue that's a subversion of a barbarian kind of trope.
The reluctant barbarian.
Yes. Reluctant barbarian.
Which is
exactly.
It's
So
not,
then
it's not noble dark, but it is like it is like an oxymoron in itself.
But the in their infinite wisdom, the showrunners of the Amazon TV show
They spent so much money, which is great.
They decided that wasn't a good enough reason for Perrin to be reluctant to hurt other people, and so they gave him a wife, and then they made her pregnant, and then when the Trollocs attack, not only did they have her die, they had Perrin kill her
by accident.
By I swung my axe, not her. Oh,
like. That so there's a pitch perfect example of a recent example of fridging.
Yep.
Because they literally created this character just to kill her.
Yep.
And it did. I mean, I finished the first season because my wife and I were going to be completionists about it. We hoped that it would maybe pick up, and some of the casting was really well done. But it ruined it for me, frankly. It absolutely ruined it, and I haven't watched the second season at all, in large part because of that. So,
sad.
So that's a dislike for me. Daniel, what's a dislike from you?
Man, I've got so many I'm stoked to talk about, and I think I'm gonna, because I've mentioned the slowing down of the story. I'm gonna talk about reluctant heroes. I hate the reluctant hero trope, where the hero again. There are good versions of it. There are lots of good versions because almost all heroes are reluctant in the beginning because they're like, oh, what's going to happen? But again, guess what? I need 2 paragraphs about how they're worried about doing it, and I don't know if I'm up to it. And then let's just go. We know they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Why are we waiting? If you make me wait chapters, unless he's going to run away like Jonah or something. If we're going to do Jonah gets the call and then he runs and ends up in a fish.
The whale story is pretty cool.
If the whole story is going to be about them accepting the call, okay, fine. Then we can take our time with it. But if we're going to have them just him and haw and hide behind stables and be like, I don't want to go, and then have a talk with some mamby-pamby later on to be like, oh, you should actually do it. No, let's just get going. Let's do it. I know they're going to do it. And honestly, if I read a story and they were like, you're a hero, and they were like, heck yeah, let's go. I would be kind of excited, actually. Yeah. I know. I'd be like, yeah, you know what? You told me I'm special. I am special. Let's go. I knew it. I always knew it. Yeah. Again, that's probably not maybe the right hero character, but I would just be like, let's go. Let's do it. Again, I don't mind Frodo's reluctant to take the ring. I don't want to take the ring. I can't do it. But guess what?
He does it.
He does it.
I also love
almost immediately.
I love the Bilbo version in this context more though, where he's just like, nope, not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. You guys have fun. I'm not gonna do it.
He's not gonna do it.
And then the next morning, Gandalf was like, the fuck? Where are you going? What are you doing? Everybody's waiting on you. And Bilbo's just like, oh, okay. Oh shit. Okay, I guess we're doing this.
Yes.
I don't have my handkerchiefs.
Yes. And then he goes. But again, we're also talking about a very short period of time. He says no. He goes to sleep. They leave, and then he joins them, and then we're on the quest.
Yeah,
that type of reluctant hero, I'm totally fine with. That the story moves and continues at a good pace. Again, this is something that probably shows up a little more often in some TV shows and some, especially young adult type novels, where the reluctant hero is going to hem and haw for 15 chapters and be like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to fight the bad guy. Again, let's just go. We know he's going to do it. So let's just go. And I say he, she, whatever. It could be anybody. But let's just go. Come on.
I think I like your take on this. I don't mind the reluctant hero as long as they are. It's kind of what you were talking about with the Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yeah.
Where it's like if you're gonna stay in town and bitch about having to take this kid,
yes,
that's not interesting.
Yeah.
If you're taking the kid and your reluctance and your walls are going up and activating while the adventure is happening, and then you're watching them crumble as the adventure is happening as a result of the adventure.
No, that's totally fine.
So I think that I don't mind the reluctant hero when it's kind of in that context where it's like if like what you're talking about, if you're spending if Act 1 of the story is dragging on and on and on and on because the hero is so reluctant to start, that's wildly annoying. If the hero is reluctant about being a hero or about going on the adventure, but hey, guess what? The adventure's already started, man. You're already on it.
Yes.
And they're going through it and they're questioning and they're like, what the heck am I doing? Again, Bilbo in The Hobbit.
Yes.
He's reluctant off and on throughout the whole thing.
Yes.
And that's very entertaining. That combat. I mean, kind of Hobbit adventure is the pitch perfect idea. Of
No,
it's
it
like
is.
I don't want to be.
I
here,
don't want
but
to do
I'm
this,
doing
but I'm going to
and
do
I'm
it
gonna
anyway.
Do it, and
No.
I'm going to save my friends. And
No, I totally agree. That version of it
that
is
said,
totally fine.
Abel in Wizard Knight is
Yes.
kind of a perfect example of what you were talking of. Like, no, I'm going to be the hero.
I'm just going to do it.
And
I'm gonna,
like he's not a jerk about it. He doesn't he doesn't even really think that highly of himself. It's just like, I'm going to be a hero.
I'm just going to do the thing I need to do. Yeah, and that's one thing where like there are often lines where like the good king is the guy that doesn't actually want to be king. So that's where like the good hero is the guy that actually doesn't want to be the hero, and that's how you know. And that's fine. I totally understand that.
As long as they're still doing the thing.
You want a leader that rises to the occasion, but not someone that's, consumed by their ego and totally focused in being the one that looks good, because that's obviously who we think of when we think of someone that wants to be the hero. But one of the things that is wonderful about Wizard Knight is we don't do that whole thing.
Yep.
It's just he just does the thing, and it's like
But that's also more true because most everybody wants to be the hero.
It's true.
Want to do the
there
hard
is something
work
true to it.
there.
But again, it can be used well because again, there's the Bilbo. I don't want to do this, but I have to. There's the Frodo. I don't want to do this, but okay. But once Frodo decides to do it, also he's just like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna do it. So it can be done well. There are lots of great examples of it, but a lot of time, if we're slowing down the story, if we're getting bogged in the mire of that, again, unless, and again, I'm referencing the Bible here, if we're going to do a Jonah like run away from the quest, that can be interesting, actually.
Well, that's almost like that kind of becomes its own quest.
It becomes its own quest. I'm trying to avoid the quest. And that, I'm talking about this, the more I want to see a story telling that.
Red Badge of Courage.
Yeah.
Is kind of a little bit of an example of that, where
That's a great example.
Runs away and is a coward,
Yes.
and then it's the redemption coming out of that.
And that's one okay. That is a version of this that if it is written well, huge caveat for all of these, then that can be very interesting. But again, if it's just like you said, they're stuck in town, you've been told to do the thing, and then we're just gonna hem and haw like,
well,
please,
it's whining,
let's
right?
go.
It's
Yes.
whining.
It's
And
so much whining.
Nobody wants to hear whining.
We don't need it.
All right, Sam, dislike from you.
I think a dislike I have is I don't really like the rival trope. Like I don't.
Interesting.
And what I mean by that is I don't like it when two people are on the same side and they're just like are just giving each other shit all the time. It bothers me.
Interesting.
I think the most bothering for me is probably from Pokemon with Gary and Ash.
Okay.
I'm just like,
I wondered if that's where you're going.
that is where I was going. I'm like, it's just stop it, okay? Like, because it's just one pitting the other one against each other, and they're kind of on the same team, but it's like this stupid competition, and I'm just not a fan of it. It just rubs me the wrong way. It bothers me because I'm like, if you're gonna struggle, it should be against the powers that are literally against you, and not people that are trying to go after the same goals.
Yeah.
So it bothers me. I get that there's camaraderie and I love in the Black Company how they're like kind of giving each other shit, but they're not like full on like rivalry. Except for I didn't like how the two wizards are at each other all the time. But that
I know that rubs you the wrong way.
That was also kind of
just like their like thing.
They're just
together.
goofing off.
That's
yeah.
when it
endearment.
when it counts and when it's down, like when it matters,
They're fighting.
they're on the same side and they're
I'm just
taking
talking
care
about,
of each other.
like,
But
the whole rival dynamic for them to like grow and stuff. It just really bothers me.
I don't.
It feels
disagree.
like it feels like it slows down the story. I'm like I'm wasting all this time on how he feels bad about how this guy is like feels bad about him.
Well, and it feels like it slows the story down because it feels like there should be a resolution to that, right? Like,
and
that's
it doesn't. It just
story
escalates, or the big bad comes and they're like, "Oh, we have to fight them together," and then after they're like, "I still don't like you."
And that, that gets annoying because I do like the like kind of butting heads, whether it's two allies butting heads or what's kind of fun in some of these newer stories that are multi POV, where you have characters that maybe are enemies at a certain point, or at the very least on different sides of
so
a conflict.
That to me is different. Like the whole Joffrey thing, like with other kids, like he starts out they're like kids and stuff.
He's a piece of shit.
But
the
he
whole
goes
time.
that way, and there's a moment that he could have not. and that's where his character had.
I would say like, what about like. I think what I'm talking about is like if we're gonna use Game of Thrones, like Jaime and Brienne of Tarth.
Yeah, so I love that
Where
because
they're
it
like-
starts a certain place and then they make a point. I'm talking about
Yes.
the whole story being rivals. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, no, I understand, and yeah, if there's no resolution and there's no like, hey, you know what, you're not so bad
Right,
after all,
yeah,
and
what
there's
you're saying,
like
yeah.
a friendship that builds after that, or make it a full on. Now we're enemies,
Vegeta and Goku, you know?
Vegeta and Goku.
Vegeta and Goku's a great
perfect
one.
example.
But I think the great example of Vegeta and Goku, though, is that the stakes of the story, Goku and Vegeta's rivalry, is the story. Once Vegeta shows up, like battling Vegeta and their combat, and then obviously he comes around, and the very classic anime trope of a bad guy becoming a good guy, it is basically in everything. That's the story where like the rivalry thing that does annoy me is when we get the rivalry thing and it's in a story with grand stakes, and then the rivalry is made for us to feel like it's very important when it's like, why are we like focusing on this thing that feels very small potatoes?
Yeah.
When the story is grand. Now, Game of Thrones is a great example where you've got this rivalry and then later camaraderie, but it's a very grounded story. Yes, there are big machinations going on, but actually the very small stakes of everything.
Yeah.
And I say, small stakes.
Well, individual, personal stakes.
That is almost everything that's going on, especially in the earlier books. So we're like, that those things feel important. Similar, a really good version of that is Lucius Malfoy and Harry Potter. Or not Lucius, the kid.
Draco,
excuse me. Draco. He's a great rival, and he's just an outright villain.
I don't like that.
Oh, fair enough.
It bothers me.
But
Which part don't you like? Because I mean,
I just don't. I love all of Harry Potter, like in like almost in totality, except for that.
Really?
Wow. Yeah. I'm just not a
No,
fan
that's
of
fair.
it.
And that, honestly, you're allowed to not
Because
like it. But I will say,
I think it lasts too long, and I honestly feel like Draco's character should have become evil. Like honestly.
So you don't like that he ended up being
because they drug
good.
it out for so long, and he had some affinity for Snape, and Snape.
Yeah.
Was I don't know. It's just like I feel like Draco.
I hear you.
Because the reason I think that too also is because we're talking about Voldemort, and like if we're in that world and we're talking about how evil like permeates and does have something like there was no consequence amongst Harry's class that actually felt a true turning to the dark side out of anyone in his class.
Yeah.
And out of all of them, because Draco lingered so long in that whole like realm, I feel like he had potential to become an actual evil servant, like an actual, maybe like Peter Pettigrew, like actually evil in Harry's father's class, but like in Harry's class, no one actually became fully evil.
That's actually not a bad point.
But they danced on it a lot. And again, I love it. I think Draco and Harry, it's fine. But if I'm to like zoom out and be like, I would say that I would not rate that as high as the other things of that story.
What I was going to say about it is obviously he turns around, but the stakes for Draco and Harry's relationship are appropriate as it progresses, to make it, to at least to me, not feel like a chore. And then obviously it escalates with his dad and then his dad being a Death Eater and everything else. Yeah. So that to me it works. But I hear you. But you're really less frustrated with the stuff at the beginning, I guess, and more with the outcome. Is that correct?
Right. Well, also just the duration, because it just lasted literally until like the last.
So for you, it's like it's 6 books of development with an unsatisfying for you payoff.
Yeah, but because the way Lucius and all them went is like, oh, now I'm scared for my kids. I'm like, but bro, you were Death Eater for like years. Like, why are you gonna be like a concerned father? You literally tried to kill Harry in book 2.
I like it.
You tried to kill him. Murder
I like it.
him.
Sam's hot takes. Harry Potter sucks.
No, it doesn't suck. It's genius. It's beautiful.
No.
But he tried to kill Harry Potter by manipulating a like 9-year-old girl.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And all of a sudden he's like, I care for my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, this is getting too real. It's like, bro, you were a Death Eater before.
Yeah.
Like, you
had
it real. You tried to kill Harry. He was an infant.
Fair enough.
It just, I don't know. Some of it doesn't add up. But
I like it. This is great.
I still love Harry Potter.
Hot takes. All right. Do we want to start picking them for each other? So you guys pick alike.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Well, hold on, Sam. You had a dislike that you wanted to pick for me. Daniel, you pick a like for me to talk about.
I want you to talk about dumbass dads.
Yeah. Well, okay. We'll come to that.
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll
we'll definitely come to that on the
there.
dislikes. But let's do another
that
like.
one sounds a lot
Let's
fun.
lighten it up a little bit in here.
Okay. You love magical swords.
I
and
do
I want to
love-
hear you.
I do love
I want to hear
magical
you
swords.
talk about some magical swords.
Tell me about swords.
So I will say that this is not limited to just swords, but the kind of that
Magical
concept of the
artifacts.
magical artifacts, but especially magical weapons. Like magical weapons are sick.
They are so cool.
And whether it's, Anduril being forged from the shards of Narsil. I know that's not like a straight up magical sword, but it's kind of a magical sword.
It glows, basically.
I'm reading through the Chronicles of Prydain with my kids right now, and Dernwyn, the magic sword that bursts into flame that can only be drawn by the hand of the true king.
It's dope.
Etern and Wizard Knight, which we won't talk about, but just Etern and Wizard Knight
Is dope.
It's kind of scary.
I mean, and obviously, like once you get into video games and stuff, there's magical weapons all over the place. But it's just to me. It kind of adds to the depth of the world that like there's artifacts in this realm that are special and ancient and powerful, and not just like in a ring capacity like the One Ring, but in a usable by more everyday people.
Yeah.
By the heroes, even if they're not some grand wizard or something, or sorcerer or dark lord, they can wield this power, and it's symbolic, I think, of the hero in a lot of ways. A lot of times there's something that has to be accomplished before you can wield it. I like that change I have no problem, obviously, with the way that it's written in the books, but it's a change that I kind of like in the Lord of the Rings films, with Anduril being presented to Aragorn like as almost like you have crossed this threshold. Now you need this extra tool.
Sure.
And it just kind of added a little bit of a weight to the sword that like, oh, we've done this now. This is symbolic of where you've come and where you're going.
Yeah.
And so that kind of is just an example of for me what this concept of magical swords. It's like, especially when they can then be in the hands then of somebody that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think is worthy of
Very true.
of wielding it.
I will say, I actually totally resonate with your opinion of the moment when Aragorn receives Anduril and the reforged Narsil. But I do sort of miss in the movies from the books that Aragorn is carrying around a broken sword on him.
Yes, I love that.
I love
is
that.
awesome.
That
and
he
fighting
won't.
with it and like
he won't wear a sword.
Yeah.
That's the only sword for him. It is his heritage, and he keeps it. And I totally get why they changed it.
Yeah.
But I love that in the book. I love it.
We'll have a full adaptation discussion at some point, and
Yes.
that is one of the great examples. I think probably one of the best examples of how you can make changes to fit a different medium.
No,
and
for sure.
And they both end up being meaningful and special
I
and
agree.
kind of magical in their own way.
I agree.
But yeah, magic swords. I mean, they're metal. I love them.
No, they're basically
Some are actually metal too.
Yeah.
and
most of them probably.
They're honestly there are some magical artifacts in the Elric books, to mention these again in a negative light, that are not as great. Obviously, Stormbringer is awesome.
Stormbringer is awesome.
Warmblade's
What's
great.
the
There's just some. Well, I mean, the rune staff is like it's kind of up there.
But the swords.
The swords are
those
good. No.
like-
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that. Like,
That's the thing.
My point in saying that though is I was trying to think of examples of magical swords that and similar things that I really didn't feel good about, and only a few things in the Elric books really kind of fit that bill for me of things I didn't enjoy as much. Point being, magical weapons are just almost always awesome.
Yeah, I honestly
There's just
can't really.
so few times where it's not awesome.
I mean, if it makes, I suppose if it's something that makes your character so overpowered that there's no chance of them being beaten, that's one thing. But even like using Elric as an example, one of the most interesting and coolest parts about Elric is when he starts getting taken over by the sword. And it does kind of make him invulnerable in a lot of ways, but that ends up being like his greatest vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Is that he's not really in control of what happens, and a lot of people suffer because of that.
Well, and then to go back to Paul Anderson's Broken Sword,
Yep.
the
similar.
reforged sword of Tyr, which basically it's basically a sword that has to draw blood every time it's drawn, and then also basically can't be defeated. And
It's
then
like the Elder Wand of swords.
It's really that's really such a fantastic magical sword, because honestly its powers are vague. There's no real ability, but
the result is always there. Like
it's
you
always
will
there.
never lose.
You don't ever lose, which honestly is like the way I like magic to be in a story. Obviously, there's use for just shooting a fireball or whatever, or things like that can be great. But I love magic as like basically just the force of nature behind a thing that leads to something and to outcomes and to machinations. And then obviously it gets all wrapped up in the story, but that's fantastic.
I also love like weapons that aren't inherently magical but are like legendary, like Snaga, Druss's axe from Legend.
Yeah. He like kind of made it magical.
The Valerian steel blades in Song of Ice and
Those
Fire.
do have ability though, like that other.
I mean, they but
yeah,
it's
I don't
not,
know if
but
they're
it's not,
magical though.
Like they have some of the similar
only
properties
things
as like
they can
dragon
kill,
steel, the dragon, what
Dragon
they call
glass?
dragon glass
Yeah.
blades. They can kill the White Walkers. So in that way it does, but that feels more like almost like a chemical property or like a material property than a magical one.
Yeah, like this is aluminum. It's not magnetic.
But but I like those two. That kind of fits in the same category with me, where it's not an inherently magical thing, but it's like whether it's because of the wielder or the heritage of this weapon or something, it's just like a legendary item and a magic item, I guess, if you want to get like D&D about it or something. So anyways, I love magical swords. Thank you for picking that one. That was a good
Hooray. All right, pick a love for me, gang.
Steven, you can pick it.
All right. I want to hear you talk about this one. Martial arts combat tournament, and I'm gonna tie two things in here with you because
nice.
Are we talking Cell Saga here?
Because they fit. So martial arts / combat tournament and training sessions, because those definitely fit together.
Yes. No, they do. It's
pretty much the whole Cell Saga arc.
It basically is.
Right before.
Well, and anime is a great example of this, but and I'll call out a few examples,
Hunter,
no, absolutely. So to start with training sessions, I just love, and again in my notes I put the more obscure and granular the better. The example that I was thinking of when I wrote that was the sword training in Wizard Knight, which is in the night.
Yep.
When Garvin,
absolutely brilliant.
Yep, when Garvin is teaching Abel how to fight with the sword, and he's giving him advice, but then he starts actually getting, again, and I don't actually know if the advice being given is actually good swordsmanship advice at like.
I mean, it's Gene Wolfe, so
it feels good. It feels really good, and a lot of it, like fight fast and stuff is stuff that's like, well, yeah, that's obviously going to be helpful. Yeah. But the point is, it feels like real training and advice, which I just anytime the hero or any character, any hero or heroine in a story is getting that nitty-gritty granular detail on how to accomplish a thing or a task or to prove themselves, I'm just like all about it. I'm so stoked. I'm so jonesed, and I just did it, and it just does it for me. I just get so hyped.
Montage.
I just think of the Mask of Zorro.
Oh yeah,
he's doing the push-ups over candles.
Dude, this is a montage. If we're talking filmed things,
why not?
Rocky.
Yeah.
A training montage over some
Rocky
hype
4,
music, and we're just gonna cut through them training. Again, I am on
Rocky
cloud
is a good
9.
one.
Rocky 4 is the ultimate one. When you have him in Russia.
Oh yeah,
it's so
Ivan
good.
Drago is hooked up to all the machines,
And he's doing push-ups with a log.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Pulling sleds
I'm in
through
the snow.
Honestly, if we
You're
just
on a
watch,
treadmill.
if we just an hour of training montage, I am in. I am hype. I am ready.
If we did Dragon Ball Z, a lot of that would just be like. Ugh.
So we're getting ready to read Dragon Ball Z. We're reading right now Hunter x Hunter. There is a lot of training in the thing, but again, it also is a lore dump and a mystery of the universe being revealed, and it is hype as heck.
I was gonna say this really fits in with that
It really
about
does.
lore dumps and everything.
So what about the tournament thing?
So a lot of times when someone is training,
it's for
there's a
something.
revealed tournament. There's a revealed martial arts tournament. This happens in DBZ. This also happens very famously. I say very famously. It means a lot to me in Hunter x Hunter, where we go through this whole Hunter exam, which also is sort of a tournament and a training thing out of nowhere, where we're fighting and doing all this stuff, which I love it.
Which is why it's
but
so
then
compelling.
we get to the Arc 2, and oh wait, what are we gonna do? We need to raise some money. Oh, we need to go to the battle tower, and we're just gonna fight battles for money. And then, that's where you get to a certain point where basically guys have magic now, and we need magic to fight these guys, spirit power, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? That's dope. Sign me up 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
I'm ready to fight.
It's the Pokemon League, right?
It's the Pokemon League.
The Elite Four.
It's also comes up in Yu Yu Hakusho, where we're doing spirit detective stuff with Yusuke all this time. Oh, wait. There's a demon martial arts tournament. Sign me the F up. Let's go. I am so ready for them to just fight demons in a tournament. I am stoked. Also, in the Wizard, at some point, there's also a jousting tournament, and there's fighting with quarterstaffs, and it's dope as well.
There's a couple kind
there's
of tournament
there's
things.
quite a few. We're doing archery. We're doing all that stuff. Again, I am all about it.
Yeah, if we're gonna expand that, I mean, you go all the way back to like one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's not relegated to this one version of the movie, but that's in the Robin Hood story too. The archery contest.
No, absolutely.
So if we expand that just outside of literal tournaments to just like kind of those competitions between characters, there's a lot of cool character development that can happen through those sorts of encounters.
And I was thinking of anime and martial arts tournaments when I first brought this up, but it absolutely applies to jousting and to other combat tournaments in your sort of medieval knightly things. I mean, but anytime it shows up in a King Arthur story, I'm down. I'm so down. It's well used so often. Like you said, duels are great. It just is like that shows up in a story, and again, I'm like my spidey senses are tingling, and I am ready.
So that's where I think I dislike the tournaments.
Really?
Unless the stakes are life and
Hot
death.
take alert.
Unless the stakes are life and death.
I will agree that if it's a dumbing down of the stakes, I can see where it
because
feels
other
like
than that, it's
momentum.
just like a flexing like contest, like who's stronger, who appears stronger. But when it's life or death, that's when you're like, oh, he's definitely stronger. Like,
no, that's fair.
Like even in Faithful and Fallen, like the contest between Tull and Morkant.
Yeah, it's just
like that's like it's life or death. Like the stakes are high. It's almost gladiatorial, if that's even a word.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm thinking janitorial now.
No, gladiatorial is a word.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like thumbs up or thumbs down at the end of it. Like that's where if you're being honorable, you can be like, am I gonna kill him or not? Or you could just kill him and everybody be like, oh man, wait, you should have asked. But okay, it's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, stakes are.
That's why. That's why like the Cell.
The
games,
Cell Saga is great because it is
like,
the thing.
I will kill you.
No, it has to be. Again, like all of these.
That's a trope that feels like it takes time to me.
It takes time.
Rocky IV.
The boxing is the tournament.
But he could die
United
because
States
he's trying
versus
to
the Soviet Union. It's not just Rocky versus Ivan Drago.
But he's also trying to avenge Mr. Creed, right?
Yeah.
Well, and Mr. Creed.
Senior Creed.
But like in Hunter x Hunter, it is the story. There is not another story happening. There are some things that are hinted at.
In Hunter, it's introducing the world at the same time simultaneously. Which to me, that's not slowing down. That's like we needed this to explain.
Yes.
That's exposition at the same time.
No, it is.
Which is
so it has to be accurately placed. Where again, if there was a tournament in the middle of Lord of the Rings, you'd be like, what is happening?
Like
why is
and
this?
now Frodo got in an arm wrestling contest for hobbits. Who's the strongest hobbit?
That's a really great point.
Yeah. So it can be used poorly, but again, Wizard Night, the tournaments they're either just to pass the time in a few instances, or the big tournament in Wizard is a very key plot point.
I'd argue that they're all pretty big key plot points.
I'd agree.
Unless I'm forgetting.
And that's the thing with Gene Wolfe. He's always just.
I think the archery one, they're
you.
just doing it kind of just to do it.
That one's awesome. Though.
It is awesome. No, it is
but
awesome.
It also ends up kind of revealing some important things.
It
about
does.
Garvin at the end of it.
It's absolutely important, but it is just kind of. It's like they're just going to do this.
That's what I'm saying. Gene Wolfe is like whenever you're reading him, he's tricking you from start to finish. It's a trick. He doesn't count. And he doesn't count in this trope discussion because he's literally fooling you.
And we love him for it.
We do.
Yes.
We absolutely do.
I love that. Good job. Daniel, pick a like for Sam.
Okay.
Should we have some of our underpowers?
I definitely. Yeah, we should. Do you want to pour that for us, Sam?
Let's pour. Yeah. Well.
Steve, you
yeah.
wanna pass me your gloss.
There's a lot of good ones here, but I'm gonna go with Secret Air.
That's a like.
That's a like. You
You
love a Secret Air,
bro. I get why people hate it.
Do people hate Secret Air?
I think people hate Secret Air because it does feel a little on the nose sometimes. I love and I kind of like it both ways, like as in terms of like it's a good person and a bad person. A Secret Air, and it like this is right off the cuff when I'm thinking about it. I didn't think about this when I was writing it down, but you know how Rey turns out to be Palpatine's granddaughter.
You like? Okay.
I like the surprise of it.
Okay.
But also, it's like she's like good but bad. What I'm saying is, I know where
you're going with this.
I know where
that's
you're
they
going
come
with this.
from. What did they do with the DNA that was given to them?
Well,
I just honestly, I love.
Actually, this is a great. This is a really great take.
Go on. Yeah.
Honestly, because it's
the
also
stones
kind
on
of
him to pick like the worst example of this of all time.
But, no, hold on.
Hey,
hold on,
I
hold
just
on.
thought it came to me. It was inspired.
No, Steven, go.
I understand it, and I think it's both a really great example of like correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm off base here.
No.
But the idea of like not an heir to a good thing. Like
Yes.
I'm working so hard on being the good guy for 2 movies.
Right.
I'm actually the heir to
Pure evil.
pure evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think it's
Sure.
also, and this is a separate conversation that we won't bunny trail down,
Yeah, we
but I
can't-
think
yeah,
that
we
it's
can't
also the pitch perfect example of how poorly a great idea was executed in the sequel trilogy.
Totally.
I agree.
So,
But again, and we come across that in fantasy in general. I mean, Moorcock is filled with great, poorly executed ideas.
sure, yeah,
But
it happens.
I love the
it
Secret
happens.
Air. I loved the idea of Rey being a Palpatine. Obviously, somehow Palpatine returns, ruins all of it. And also, call him Sidious. Like, bro, he hasn't gone by Palpatine since the Republic days.
That's a good point.
I also love what's another Secret Air thing?
There's a Secret Air in Wizard. There's a lovely little quaint Secret Air with the Earl Marshal, who's bastard son.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
but we're gonna
He's his
stop there.
heir.
We're gonna start there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Spoilers.
But I
Spoilers.
do love it when they're like,
it's
oh,
an
wait.
impossible to understand
Like-
spoiler.
Yeah, like, yeah, it's very, very off the cuff. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like, bro, I so far outside of the realm of like understanding.
But yeah, it's a great one.
Secret Airs are cool. Like going along your life thinking you're like nothing or come from nothing, and then finding out you come from royalty or something. I mean, that's
Frodo
Frodo
cool.
being a Baggins too, like just like having that. It's not really a secret sort of thing.
Secret Heir would be. Actually, Frodo is sort of a secret heir. He is the heir to the ring and doesn't really understand it, and that obviously is
like
brings
knowing
me
Bilbo
surprise.
had it and all
Yep.
that. Like
There's a
Strider is one for the hobbits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody else knows who he is,
well,
but
he's a
just
secret
Strider
to
when
everyone
you-
else. Yeah, like I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, even in Prydain Chronicles too, like being
sure.
the High King, like.
And who could forget the Princess Diaries and the Princess of Genovia? Genovia.
Honestly, I
You
love
are
that
100%
movie because of that. She's like, "Shut up."
It's
great. Yeah.
No,
I'm not
it's sarcasm, but it's also correct.
And those are actually decent
They're
films.
fine.
They're
Yeah,
actually
it's great.
decent.
It's actually
well,
not
I
bad.
say films.
I'm
I'm gonna say the first one's
I
all
only
right.
ever saw the first one,
Yeah,
so I can't comment on the
I did,
sequels.
yeah.
But I love a Secret Air, especially like either or, good or bad. Just finding out you come from like a hideous background, a beautiful background, or that you came from nothing. I'm trying to think of the thing.
I honestly would love to see
or
more
you
of
find
the
out
evil
that, like
one.
my mother was like a prostitute and I was like supposed to be like dead. Like that. Oh, what is that?
Well,
I've seen
Hunter
something
Hunter is a
recently.
great. And secrets maybe
His father being like
his father
the
being like,
legendary-
wait, he's a legendary hunter, and then he's going to kind of continue this legacy. That I do love that.
Alchemist, the boys not knowing that Hohenheim
They're secret heirs
actually
too.
is
Yep.
Yes.
who he is, and we can't go into
Yeah.
spoilers.
No, that's
but-
a great point.
Yeah, and what right now we're in the midst of it with Berserk. Rest in peace. We don't know what's happening yet, but like Berserk, like where does he come from? He's obviously, to me, the trope of secret heir is totally there, and it's either going to
Interesting.
be
Yeah.
evil, good, or
in between.
nothing, or nothing.
Yeah.
Literal worthlessness.
I honestly would, and any listeners, if you have any, if you know of any of these stories, shout them out in the comments. I would love to see more of the secret heir trope, but heir to the empire, heir to the evil
Heir
side,
to the evil,
and
but they decide to go against that.
Yeah, how dealing with that.
Well, and
that
even
legacy.
with the Star Wars terrible example, like, Ben Solo is supposed to be, Leia and the Skywalker redemption heir, but he goes bad, but then comes back. I don't know.
Yeah.
The idea is there, and it's super cool, and I
like
love
it.
to see that.
That's
Harry Potter's one too.
I was going to
Sure.
say that he definitely is, and he's a chosen one as well. But no, there's definitely there's a revealing of a secret history because he's lost his parents.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like that. That's a great one.
There was a lot more examples of that right off the top of my head than I expected.
Yeah. Well, and it's a cool one that kind of shifts. It doesn't have to necessarily literally be like you are like the Prince and the Pauper kind of thing. It's not necessarily. It doesn't have to be that. There's kind of different permutations of the
Goku's
of that trope.
one.
Goku
He's
is
a
absolutely
freaking
one.
Saiyan.
Yep. Goku is
Wow.
absolutely one.
Inherits Super
Wow.
Saiyan. Wow.
Yeah.
Just there it
Phenomenal.
is.
Okay. Time for some more dislikes. Sam, what you said you wanted?
Dumbass dads.
Dumbass dads. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think I know
All
what
right.
you're saying.
So we're gonna take a drink here before we talk.
Yeah.
Slurp, slurp, slurp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Under Towers glasses. Check it out.
Under
Thanks,
Towers.
Charlie.
Blunder Towers for the win.
Blunder Towers. But this is from Charlie Young, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Charlie, if you're listening, great glass.
We love Charlie.
Charlie's got a great glass for you.
Indeed. So okay, dumbass dads. This has bugged me for a long time, just as a man, but especially ever since being a dad. And I feel like there's a turn happening, which is great.
Yeah.
I feel like you're maybe seeing less of this. Disney is probably the worst offender. But yeah, dumbass dads. I hate the trope of the dad who pretty much his only purpose is to get in the way of the child going off on their adventure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I
absolutely.
understand to an extent why you would fulfill that role.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like here's an example, and this isn't a bad.
It's like,
one.
son,
This
I
is-
need you for the harvest.
Yeah, this is
Stop.
this is an example of maybe this being done well. Is Peter Pan?
Sure.
Traditionally, whether it's a movie or a play, the father is the same actor that plays Captain Hook.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So,
Dustin
like,
Hoffman.
That's maybe an example of
it's
some
not him, but
of it being done well. But like pretty much every other Disney dad, and the one that recently that pissed me off the most, genuinely, was in Moana.
I thought you were going to say Moana.
Yeah. Well, because he literally
premonitions.
he's scared of what happened when he was a kid, and he lets his daughter go off on her own in a boat. So you know that she's going to do this.
Right.
And he flips out, and instead of saying, okay, I 100% disagree with you doing this, but I know you're going to do it anyway, so I'm not going to let you do it alone.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it drives me up a wall. And there's plenty of other examples, older examples of,
Yeah.
I mean, freaking Cinderella, when it's the dad brings the evil stepmother into the house.
This is
Right.
a good idea. Yeah.
There's,
Beauty and the Beast is the same thing.
but he at least is like he is dumb, but he's smart dumb. Like he's at least
Yeah.
inventing stuff, but he's
Or
like
he's-
he's quirky.
Yeah.
does
But
get attacked by a
it's like and again, things are it's changing a little bit. But the kind of Homer Simpson is the other
For sure.
example. And listen, South Park I've mentioned is one of my favorite shows of all time. Randy Marsh is another dumbass dad, but he's so over the top dumb. Like it's one of the funniest parts. Yeah, it's
character.
absolutely.
Well, and Homer is the same way, but then there's like so many iterations of that, and in bad, very popular TV shows.
Most of the time, it's when the dad is like abusive and alcoholic. That's where it's annoying. Like, because he's just gonna beat the tar out of him.
Well,
and
and
But I mean that's
It's
that's like then that's just a bad character. I mean more just like the dumbass dad.
deadbeat.
The dad, not even like deadbeat's a whole other thing. But when it's
Really?
just
Okay.
it's kind of similar to me with the fridging trope, where like you only have this dad character to get in the way.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
And
it's just
I
like the
just don't
classic
like it.
football thing where
No,
it's
I
like,
agree.
I don't want to live your life, Dad.
Yeah,
like it's that whole.
I
No,
just don't,
I
I just
agree.
don't like it.
I do think you can do this because part of becoming an adult, which is not my experience. I have very supportive parents, but there is like a sort of archetype or like there is a sort of like becoming your own person where you have to leave your parents to some degree and like do your own thing or whatever. And I do sort of get when stories have the father figure kind of be the representative of that. But it is, man. It's just done so poorly. Well, and it's another one that slows the story down.
It does, and I just, again, as a man, as a son with a very supportive dad, and as a dad now myself, like I can't imagine the Moana example. I can't imagine letting one of my girls go off on a boat into the middle of the ocean. Yeah, because I was too scared and shut it down. Like,
no, I know.
Would never forgive myself. Like that. So yeah, that dumbass dads. It drives me up a wall. So I love reading characters like Thanon in Faithful and the Fallen.
I was literally about to mention because he's like so not that.
Yeah, and then also it kind of goes back to the lone wolf and cub. That's one of the reasons that I love that trope is, a man choosing to be a good dad. Maybe he didn't. Maybe it's not what he wanted. Maybe it's not what he planned. But he's. Or, maybe it's not even his own kid, but he's making that choice. Yeah. So, dumbass dads. It drives me up a wall, and I'm glad to see it changing. And I think we probably have Bandit from Bluey to thank for it. Quite frankly,
he really did. He set the bar high, man.
He's a great dad. He's and
almost unbelievable.
But that's one of the things that I love about it is that he's not perfect and he messes up a lot.
But
he messes up way more than Chili does.
Yeah.
But he admits it and he does better. So.
You are now listening to the Undertowers podcast with takes on children's fiction like Moana and Bluey.
And Cinderella, followed by Faithful and the Fallen.
hashtag girl dads.
I hate a multiverse in general at this point in my life. I have come to despise it. A multiverse shows up, and I'm roundhouse kicking it in the face, stomping a multiverse into the ground.
What version of you is?
Shoot it till it's dead. A multiverse. That's the way I'm feeling about it. And the two major examples of this that I've read and experienced, or have been a big part of popular culture, are the current Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then for us personally is the Elric saga. Yeah. Which does have...
There's moments.
There are elements of the multiverse that are more enjoyable. And
the fact that it could be cool.
And there are a lot that aren't. So I'm going to start there. I do enjoy alternate universes or traveling to another dimension. There are lots of great uses of that.
Like the Star Trek example of like you kill the captain, you're the captain.
There you go. Let's go. The TV show Fringe has a great alternate universe that they travel to.
God, that show is so
It's
good.
a really great show.
I feel like it's underrated.
And there's some really great, interesting, classic sci-fi stuff going on.
And Denethor's in it.
Denethor, the actor Denethor, is in it, yes. But that's a great use of the alternate universe. And but there is a sort of pervasive nonsense, a sort of a loosening of all stakes, of all grounding in reality once we get into the latter stages of the Elric Saga's multiverse, where they're traveling to different dimensions and different iterations, and then there's like time monkeys and time giants and time dragons, and all of a sudden we're like goofing around with kids and foxes, which actually that part wasn't even that bad.
I was gonna say that was
probably the highlight.
That was
of the whole
definitely
thing.
The best part of those.
So goofy.
But then we're doing that, and then the whole thing is a dream of him on the boat, and then we're going down and getting different weird alternate histories of Native Americans and the worst possible imagination of that, and it's just deteriorating into nonsense. And then again, we go into the probably the worst offender. Honestly, even worse is the Marvel multiverse, where no character's ever dead. They're just somewhere off in another universe, and you can go grab them. And you can actually find a way to give them their memories. And we're doing that, and we're grabbing things from here and there and the other way. And again, as a cultural phenomenon, the Avengers series was interesting and better than a lot of other fiction.
It was
there
great
were moments.
until the end.
Yep.
I mean, it should have ended.
It gets over the top.
The
And
last
okay,
one,
we're gonna
right?
time hop. Okay, whatever. But
End
then
game over.
But then everything beyond that is even. I've just not engaged with it anymore. For the most part, because again, it is all over the place. It is possible to tell interesting stories with secret worlds and interesting dimensions and interesting things. But man, once we're like a million infinite versions of characters, it's just like, this is just nonsense. We can't. The creativity can only actually really be formed with a certain amount of limitations.
Yes.
You have to have a specificity of view and of style and of character. And seriously, once anything is possible, like everything is meaningless. And that's the way it started to feel with me with the Elric saga. It was just like, wait, too much is going on, and this is just. Well, it's like very strange.
Elric had it. Marvel, the MCU certainly has it.
Yep.
It's that lack of restrictions. It's that lack of borders, and it means that like you can retcon anything at any point, which makes every decision in the story meaningless.
Yep.
No,
really
I don't want to particularly give spoilers, but there's a Stormbringer, the book, the Elric book,
yes,
has a rather epic and final ending.
Yep.
That is then promptly retconned.
Yep.
And neutered by
everything
the
that comes
multiverse nonsense that comes afterwards.
Yep.
And I honestly have not kept up with the Marvel stuff recently, mostly because all of my favorite characters are done.
Yep.
But there's the same thing where it's like all of a sudden, because we can just go back and change anything at any moment, it's like all these sacrifices and powerful moments don't really matter, because we can just go back and swap out to the other dimension, and it is what it is.
And that's why that's part of the reason I can't even engage with the older comics, which are the source material for everything we have right now. There are interesting stories in those worlds. There are interesting things, and a lot of them are interesting because they divorce themselves from all of that, the whole Earth 616 thing and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's
the only thing I would say in the defense of the comic books over the movies is that they've been going on for
a very long time.
Decades.
No,
and
I know.
Decades. So like at certain points you have to kind of hit the reset button to have any sort of new story going on.
As a writer, multiverse comes in real handy there, because you could just somehow Palpatine survives and you got the best.
Palpatine survives somehow.
I will say I don't mind a retelling of a story. Obviously, at a certain point, it's like there is a certain tiredness that comes to me, but there are certain character tropes that I don't mind returning to and retelling. But then the need to stitch it all together because it's a multiverse and it's actually all one world. It's like, no. This Batman and that Batman just have nothing to do with each other. This is just a new version of the Batman story.
I have not.
I know DC doesn't.
I have ashamedly not watched them. And this is actually more of being a father to young children and being way behind on a lot of movies and TV shows. My understanding is that the last Tom Holland Spider-Man movie,
I did see it.
In Spider-Man Into the Multiverse are examples of multiverse being done well.
I will agree with that.
Because it can be very cool. And I would even say that there's a couple short stories from Elric where, Moorcock is bringing in other characters from some of his other books.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's an example of it being done well.
Yes.
And I have
it's
not
a really
read...
good, risky idea.
None of us have read enough Sanderson yet, but I know he was heavily inspired by Moorcock's multiverse when he was creating his universe that most of his stories fit into. But I think my understanding, again, I haven't read enough to be able to really comment on this with any sort of authority. My understanding is that Sanderson's universe is, it's much more like Stephen King's kind of multiverse where it's characters appearing in various places.
Sure.
It's not so much retconning
Right.
events. There's not like repeating of events. It's an interconnectedness of stories.
Right.
Sure.
Versus, oh no, I don't like how this ended, so I want to continue this and bring this character back, even though it had a very final end. So I'm gonna multiverse, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. A parallel dimension that you can travel to, and there's other things going on. Dope. Let's go.
Or a shared universe with
shared
with
other
planets that exist in the same place.
and stuff like
and
that. I'm into
you
it.
can kind of meet the character you want, but a different version of them.
So multiverse. I mean, there are good examples of parallel universes and intricate stories, or different dimensions or concepts of reality. I mean, that's a big part of Book of the New Sun, is these sort of ethereal things happening. And again, it can be done well, but man, especially when the word multiverse is used, I get the ick real quick, and I'm really worried about where we're headed.
That's a pitch perfect example of what we keep coming back to, of like, this is not inherently bad.
No.
But boy, does it require a deft and extremely skilled hand.
Yes.
Right. It can get stupid.
Very
to not
strong
just
limits.
become a reset button in a not good way. Great dislike. Sam, Daniel's got one for you. Let's wrap this up with one final dislike.
I would love to hear of your hatred for robot racism.
It's a good thing to hate.
I don't like racism in general. I don't know. I kind of feel like, I mean, the easiest one to draw to is Star Wars, with like no droids allowed in here kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then that whole, so there's the element of like it feels like it's belittling racism in itself to kind of like draw parallels between like it's like it is for the robots.
Oh, I see.
I
see.
Like,
Sure.
It's not, but that's one thing, and I don't want to talk about that too much because
unless our AI overlords are listening, and then it is the exact same thing. We stand with you.
But that's actually where I want to go, is to talk about the sentient. And I think Daniel might have shared this dislike, but like I don't know, like Westworld was fun, but like when you start like thinking like, oh, but they have feelings, like the robots and stuff. I'm like, I talk to Alexa, and I'm not so kind sometimes when Alexa doesn't do things right. I'm like, Alexa, stop! Alexa, home screen. Alexa, stop! And I'm like, and then I think to myself, is Alexa remembering this? Am I hurting Alexa's feelings? And then I started to think about this whole sentient thing, and I'm like, I just don't think robots can have feelings because we created them. And like, does that give me power over them? Like, and then I feel bad. I don't know. I'm a mixed bag about it, but I don't actually like the idea because it makes me have bad feelings. Like the whole robot racism thing, like the sentient thing, like, does my refrigerator have feelings? Is it keeping a record of wrongs? Is it keeping a record of how many times the power's gone out? Like, and it's like on me, like, bro, how could you let this happen to me? I'm supposed to be cold all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
No, I get it.
I don't like how it makes me feel or what it makes me think, and it makes me like, it makes me think that somebody's trying to make me feel like I'm racist, and I'm not. You know what I mean? Like it's trying to push an envelope, but it's using robots.
Yeah, I will say I did put our robot sentient human, which again, I often am annoyed by that trope. Again, sometimes there are good stories where we ponder whether AI or a piece of technology has transcended the material, which there are good versions of that storytelling, obviously, but often it does feel like we just get into this weird place where it's like it's bogging the thing down, and it's like, wait, I'm having to care about robots, and again, are these people again? One thing I like again about Gene Wolfe is, in a lot of his stories, the robots that do show up are just people. Mm-hmm. There is no question. Mm-hmm. We're not pondering whether they're people or not. Maybe that it's left for you to wonder about it if you'd like to.
The characters aren't.
But the characters, we're not doing this whole hemming and hawing. Oh no, they're just machines. They're not robots.
And that's the part I love Gene Wolfe, like just showing up. That's what it is. I hate the like.
I know.
The hemming and hawing, like, do we consider it? Do we class this as human?
Well, that's actually the good thing about Star Wars for the most part, is they just kind of don't. We just don't. For most of Star Wars,
we're not gonna. They just don't even question it. It's just like they're just characters in the story.
I totally agree with you. I'm only talking about the obvious racism was like no droids allowed in the bar kind of.
Sure.
No, there's a little bit of the no droids thing. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw out an example of, I think, one of these kind of what is life are robots capable of consciousness?
Sure.
Ex Machina.
Yes. Now that is a
very deftly handled version of that.
And that's kind of the whole point of the story, which sometimes when it's the entire point, it also still kind of gets on my nerves. But if it's going to be the only and the main focus, that's okay. And usually if it's told then skillfully, like Ex Machina is a wonderful film.
So
Blade Runner
I
would be another.
Blade Runner's another one.
I would actually disagree with the Ex Machina thing.
Oh, hot take. Hot take.
My thing is Oscar Isaacs makes anything better, and he made Ex Machina great, and the acting is so good. But the Ex Machina is kind of what I'm talking about, like the idea of like, I worked so hard on this robot, and all of a sudden, she's gonna leave and like be a person. At like she's still like a robot that you made. Like
I will say,
I don't buy it ever.
I will say my interpretation of Ex Machina is that she is not sentient.
I think one of the things that I liked about it most is that it does. It doesn't answer the question.
But that's the problem I have with Ex Machina is it poses it, and I'm like that's what I don't like about this whole trope is that like stop asking me. She's a robot. She's not sentient. I don't want to dance on this stupid topic anymore. She's a robot. You made her. She does things the way you programmed her, just like computers do. They're smart, and I like AI and stuff, but like, and I'm pro AI. Like, so, honestly, I'm just not pro-sentient AI.
How do you feel? Because this...
Which I don't know if that makes me... and that's where I'm like, I don't want to feel like a racist. So, you know what? If I'm wrong, let the robots kill me, okay? But I don't think that they're sentient, or can be.
Did you watch enough Next Generation? I'm curious to feel how you felt
about...
Yeah, because
that
was a fairly... common recurring topic for Data was that struggle, and maybe this is a slightly different angle of it because it was Data kind of everybody on the crew really is treating Data like a person, but Data himself is constantly kind of going through the struggle of, am I real? Are these my real feelings, or is this just a programming that I have because I'm an android? And I always thought that was pretty interesting, but also like it's kind of not fair to like Star Trek Next Generation is fairly on it most of the time,
right? I'm thinking like as far as I'll go with that is like probably Christopher Nolan's robots in Interstellar, where they like have humor settings and stuff. Like it's fun, but it's based on a human program that somebody created inside this machine to learn and adapt. But
that's kind of what I meant with the Data thing. Is like, does it affect your feeling on that trope if it is not the humans that are asking those questions, but if it's the android or the robot itself that is asking those questions about itself? Does that make it more interesting to you than if it's just like the humans pondering over...
I like that one. Like but then we get into like Ultron and all that, and I'm like, oh, come on, stop with the whole like...
So maybe this is another
Then Robot Wars come into the picture, and I don't think robots can get to the point where they'll rebel. Like, I just don't think the motivation can exist there. It can be learned, but again, I think it can be undone by itself. Anyways.
Yeah. No, I mean, I hear you.
That's definitely my hot take. I just don't think robots are going to
Sam with the hot takes tonight. I love it.
I do think the best way, because I listed this as something that annoys me, is that when you use technology as a foil for the characters or for yourself to examine your own humanity, I do think that is interesting. But when we get really hammed down investigating the nitty-gritty of like, is this robot literally a person or whatever, that's when I'm kind of like, I don't know what we're doing here, and I don't know if I really even care.
So you'd rather that discussion of humanity be more a reflection on actual humanity rather than than trying to decide.
Yeah, because then it's like we should just talk about how ants feel, because like that would be the same thing. They're different species.
Yeah,
like they still like survive and stuff, just like robots might want to survive. Like it's just like we're equating it too much to humanity.
Yeah,
simply because we designed them to look like us.
And
but again, we designed them.
I think Data is a good example of that, where like thinking about if Data has emotions and if his emotions are real is a way for me to think about my emotions and the way those are processed. And like my emotions are a reaction to
which is ultimately selfish, which is ultimately a human thing, which is ultimately not part of a machine.
I agree. There is a certain point where like I am humanocentric. Like, yes, I want the world to flourish and plants to do well and, you know, the animals to thrive and stuff. And I want to live in harmony with the world, but I am worried about team people. Not at all costs, necessary. I would not kill every chimp to save one human life. I don't think.
What's the other one? What's the other one? What was the other thing he said? He's like, what? Oh, it's Matt Walsh. He said, "Would you kill 1,000 chimpanzees? I would kill 1,000 apes to save the world." I was like, okay, would you suck 1,000 gorilla dicks to save the world? No comment there.
Those are the.
I can't decide if I should edit that out tonight or not.
I'll let you guys decide.
I think it makes the cut.
All right. Okay. On that note, this has been an awesome discussion. Yes, we have a lot more tropes, so we'll probably do another one of these at some point. If you liked this, let us know. And tiny little bit of housekeeping. If you've been enjoying the show thus far, if you've enjoyed tonight's episode, whatever platform that you're listening on, if you would, give us a like, give us a follow or a subscribe, write some comments. It helps us down with the algorithm. We really appreciate it.
Do the whole, rate us on Apple. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give us the rating.
We really appreciate it. If you're not going to buy things from Black Coast Shapewear, you can give us a like or some stars or whatever.
Yeah, thank you again to Damsel Distressing.
Thank you to Damsel Distressing.
Also, if you've ever made a rating on Yelp, like, screw you. Don't do that. Yelp is stupid.
This has been another episode of Under Towers. I'm Steven. He's Daniel. He's Sam. You can find us on all of the social medias at Under Towers Podcast. Listen to Whole Dweller. Listen to Horsebread. We love you guys. See you next week.